This retirement mistake just cost my neighbor $500,000. And if you're watching this video, there's a 73% chance you're making the exact same mistake right now. Before we dive in, if you're serious about not working until you die, hit that subscribe button for the retirement journey right now. We expose the retirement lies that keep you broke and reveal the strategies that actually build wealth. And smash that like button if you're ready to stop following financial advice that's designed to keep you poor forever. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the one retirement decision that's quietly stealing $500,000 from your future, and more importantly, how to fix it starting today. This is information that could literally change the trajectory of your entire life. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Dave. Dave's 62 years old, worked his entire life as an engineer, and genuinely thought he was doing everything right with his retirement planning. He maxed out his 401k contribution for 25 straight years. He lived well below his means, driving used cars and taking modest vacations. He avoided debt like the plague, and even maintained a 6-month emergency fund that financial advisors always recommend. But last month, Dave came over to my house looking absolutely defeated and shell-shocked. He just finished meeting with his financial advisor and discovered something absolutely devastating about his retirement strategy. The approach he'd been following religiously, the one that everyone told him was safe and conservative and responsible, had actually cost him over $500,000 in potential retirement income. Here's exactly what happened to Dave and why it's probably happening to you right now. For his entire 25-year career, Dave put 100% of his retirement savings into target date funds. This sounds incredibly responsible, right? That's exactly what every financial advisor recommends. Set it and forget it. Don't try to time the market. Just pick a target date fund that matches your retirement year and let the professionals handle everything else. But Dave forgot one absolutely crucial thing about how these funds actually work, and that oversight cost him everything. The financial industry has been lying to you about what safe actually means, and Dave just learned this lesson the hard way. The mistake that destroyed Dave's retirement? He never understood how target date funds automatically shift your money away from wealth-building investments as you get older. You see, these funds automatically move your money from stocks to bonds as you approach your target retirement date. On the surface, this sounds incredibly smart and logical. But here's the problem that nobody talks about. Bonds have been absolutely terrible investments for the last 15 years, and they're about to get significantly worse. When Dave was 40 years old, his target date 2025 fund allocated 80% of his money to stocks and only 20% to bonds. That allocation wasn't terrible for building wealth. But here's where the disaster began happening. By the time Dave reached age 60, that same fund had automatically shifted to 40% stocks and 60% bonds. That massive shift into bonds is exactly where Dave lost $500,000. Let me show you the mathematics that will absolutely blow your mind and probably make you angry about your own retirement strategy. If Dave had simply kept 70% of his money in stocks instead of allowing it to shift into 60% bonds, he would have an additional $500,000 sitting in his retirement account today. I'm not making these numbers up. These are real, verifiable returns that you can check yourself. From 2010 to 2023, the S&P 500 stock index averaged 12.3% annual returns. Corporate bonds, during that same period, a measly 3.8% average return. Dave's target date fund averaged only 7.1% because of this automatic bond allocation that was supposed to be protecting his money. But a simple 70% stock, 30% bond portfolio would have averaged 10.4% during that same time period. Now here's the number that should terrify you. The difference between earning 7.1% and 10.4% over 25 years on a $500 monthly contribution is exactly $523,000. Dave literally gave away over $500,000 because he followed conventional financial wisdom. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, aren't bonds supposed to be the safer investment? Isn't this conservative approach actually protecting my money from market crashes? That's exactly what the financial industry wants you to believe, and it's the biggest lie in retirement planning. Here's the truth that Wall Street doesn't want you to understand. Bonds aren't actually safer for long-term retirement savings. Yes, they're safer from day-to-day price volatility. Your account balance won't swing up and down as dramatically. But they're extremely dangerous for something much worse than daily volatility: inflation risk and opportunity cost over long time periods. Think about this logically. The average retiree lives 20 to 25 years after they stop working. That's not a short-term investment timeline that requires conservative positioning. That's still a long-term investment horizon. Yet target date funds treat you like you're going to withdraw and spend every penny of your retirement money on the day you retire, which is completely ridiculous. This conservative bond allocation approach made perfect sense back in the 1980s when bonds were paying 10% to 15% interest rates. You could actually preserve and grow your purchasing power with bonds back then. But in today's economic environment, this strategy is financial suicide. When bonds are paying 4% and inflation is running at 3%, you're making a real return of only 1% per year. That's not wealth preservation. That's slow-motion financial destruction. But here's what makes this even worse. While you're earning 1% real returns in bonds, stocks are continuing to compound wealth at much higher rates. You're not just earning low returns. You're actively missing out on wealth creation that could fund decades of comfortable retirement living. So what's the actual fix for this retirement disaster? It's simpler than you think, but it requires you to completely ignore conventional financial wisdom and do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. First, you need to throw out the age-based allocation rule completely. You know the one I'm talking about. 100 minus your age should be your stock allocation. It's outdated garbage that was created for a different economic era. Here's what actually works in today's environment. Keep 70% to 80% of your money in stocks throughout your entire retirement. I know that sounds terrifying if you've been brainwashed by conservative financial advice, but remember this crucial fact. You're not spending this money next week or next month. You're spending it gradually over the next 25 years of your life. Second, you need to use what's called a bucket strategy instead of relying on target date funds to make decisions for you. Here's how this works. Keep 2 to 3 years of your living expenses in cash or very short-term bonds. This is your immediate spending bucket that protects you from market volatility. Keep another 2 to 3 years of expenses in intermediate-term bonds. This is your medium-term bucket. Everything else, which should be the vast majority of your money, goes into stock index funds for long-term growth. This bucket strategy solves the biggest problem with retirement investing. When the stock market crashes, and it absolutely will crash multiple times during your retirement, you're not forced to sell your stocks at the bottom to pay your bills. Instead, you simply live off your cash and bond buckets while your stock investments recover and continue growing. Let me show you exactly what Dave's portfolio would look like if he'd implemented this strategy instead of blindly following target date fund allocations. Same $500 monthly contribution over 25 years, but maintained at 75% stocks and 25% bonds throughout his entire career instead of shifting to 60% bonds. The final result? $1.2 million instead of $700,000. That's the $500,000 difference we've been talking about. But it gets even better than that. During retirement, this higher stock allocation would continue generating significantly higher returns, meaning Dave's money would last much longer and provide a much higher standard of living throughout his retirement years. But don't just take my word for all of this. Let's look at real historical data that proves this strategy works even during the worst market conditions. During the 2008 financial crisis, which was the worst market crash in 80 years, how long did it actually take for stocks to recover to their previous highs? Only 18 months. If you had implemented a proper bucket strategy with a 5-year cash and bond buffer, you would never have needed to touch your stock investments during that entire crash and recovery period. You would have simply lived off your conservative buckets while your stocks recovered and then continued growing to new highs. Now compare that to what happened with Dave's target date fund approach during the 2022 bond crash. When the Federal Reserve started raising interest rates aggressively, there was literally nowhere to hide in his portfolio. Stocks fell 20%, but bonds also fell 15%. His safe, portfolio got crushed from both sides because he was over-allocated to the asset class that was supposed to be protecting him. Here's a real example from our community that proves this strategy works. Janet started following this bucket strategy at age 45 after learning about the problems with target date funds. She's now 67 years old with $1.8 million in retirement savings. Her sister, who's the same age and had virtually identical income and savings rate, followed traditional target date fund advice and has only $950,000 saved. Same family, same income, same savings discipline, but an $850,000 difference in outcomes simply because of allocation strategy. Look, I know this information goes against everything you've been told about retirement planning, but the mathematics don't lie, and conservative doesn't actually mean safe when you're dealing with 30-year investment timelines. Now listen, if this video just potentially saved you from losing $500,000 or more, do me a huge favor. Subscribe to The Retirement Journey and ring that notification bell. We're the only channel consistently telling you the retirement truths that Wall Street and the financial industry don't want you to know. Hit that like button if you're completely done being lied to about your financial future. And please share this video with anyone you care about, because every single person stuck in target date funds is losing approximately $47 every single day in opportunity cost. Next week on The Retirement Journey, I'm exposing the Social Security claiming mistake that's even more expensive than this target date fund disaster. You absolutely cannot afford to miss this information if you want a secure retirement. Remember, your retirement doesn't have to be a financial disaster, but only if you stop following the crowd and start following strategies that actually work.